So last weekend, I did my very first ever book signing. Most of the people who showed up that day were friends and family, acquaintances, but there were a few randos that were just there in the store that also bought books. I sold 6 books in one morning, and honestly, I was pretty thrilled by that. Because here's the thing, I've been working on this book, this story, for over 10 years. That's 10 years across multiple versions, multiple formats, multiple false starts. And then somebody last week came up to me, handed me money, shook my hand, and bought my book, and got it signed right on the spot. So that's really what this video is, how you go from years of almost to actually having something, and then what to do with it, and what the first couple of weeks of being actually a published author really looks like. The book is called Eve Descending. Here it is. It's the first in a trilogy that I'm working on, published under my imprint, Cafe Society Press. But before it was a trilogy, it was just an idea for a novel. And before that, it was a short film. Before that, it was a script. And before that, it started as a short story that I wrote in college. And then in 2024, I sat down, got all the files back from all the previous versions, and I rewrote the novel from scratch with things that I had learned from the previous iterations of the story. And then I finished it, and then I actually published it. So that's the short version. The longer version is just years of creative life, doing different jobs, working for marketing teams, doing all kinds of other stuff besides actually writing the book. But that is a story for another video. What I want to talk about in this video is what happened when I stopped developing and started releasing it, because that transition is its own education. So the first big decision I had to make was how to publish, and more specifically, how wide I wanted to go with it. A lot of indie authors are just going to opt for Amazon, and that's fine. That's KDP, Kindle Unlimited, Audible, their whole ecosystem of book launching platforms. And I get it, that's simple. You just let Amazon handle everything. It's way easier than what I did. But I didn't want Amazon to be my only shot. Okay, I wanted my book everywhere, potentially where a reader could look for it. And so I decided to go wide with my distribution. For the print editions, the paperback and the hardback, I used Ingram Spark. Now, Ingram is the world's largest distribution platform. Even the big dog publishers use Ingram to distribute books to a wide number of companies, retailers. By using Ingram, I was able to get Eve Descending into all of the big major retailers. We're talking about Barnes & Noble, Walmart, Target, Spotify, Apple Books. So you see what I mean? Anywhere somebody might look, they're probably going to be able to find it, or at least it will be in the system there. And because it's in that catalog, it also can be ordered by independent bookstores. And that was really important to me, both as a reader and as an author who wants my book to have a real shelf life. For the audiobook, I used both Audible, which is ACX, and Findaway Voices, which is actually not called Findaway Voices anymore. It's now called In Audio, and it's owned by Spotify. So same logic, wide distribution, not exclusive to any one platform. And so now the audiobook is out among all of the major retailers. And then for the ebook version, I did Kindle, and then I also did Draft to Digital. So Draft to Digital is interesting because they will blast it out to a ton of different random retailers all over the world, and that includes library systems. And that was really important to me because I wanted to make sure that Eve Descending was available to readers even if they weren't able to necessarily pay for it. And yeah, going wide like that is more complicated, more platforms, more, usernames and passwords you got to keep track of, more accounts. Just a lot of moving parts, but it also means that the book is able to find readers wherever they are. And that was what made it really worth it to me. Here's where I'm going to be genuinely honest with you, because I think a lot of indie authors' content tends to gloss over this part. I started marketing Eve Descending 8 months prior to the launch of this book. That's almost an entire year of content, pretty consistently, almost daily, before the book was even available to buy. And that felt like a really long time when I was in the midst of it, but in retrospect, it was barely enough. My main platform was TikTok, specifically booktok. I spent a long time building up a following there, and then I moved to Instagram. I'm working on building Instagram now, and I also have a YouTube channel. I also did a lot of outreach to my personal network. through my personal Facebook, people local, friends, family, acquaintances, people that actually know me, who I knew would want to support the project and support me in this. And just being honest with you, a significant number of the pre-orders for this book came from those people. And I want to make sure you understand this clearly. That's not embarrassing. Every author starts with the people that already care about them. You know, that's your base, that's your tribe. Word of mouth also moved quite a few copies in a way that I really had no control over or way to trace. You know, a friend tells another friend, the friend buys it, and you don't even know what happened until you see an uptick in your sales numbers. Now, here's the thing I do differently, and I want you to pay really close attention here. I spent a lot of time in the early months engaging with other authors, liking posts, leaving comments, following people, being part of the author community on social media. And I don't regret that entirely. I met some really awesome people through that, and I was able to join a couple of writer communities that I now engage with regularly and pass feedback back and forth to each other. So that part of it was really good. But the thing is, those authors are colleagues. Readers are your customers. And I know a lot of authors are readers too, that's fine. They can also be customers. But what I'm trying to say is I was spending too much time with my colleagues rather than pursuing the people who are actually more likely to buy the book and cherish it and share it with their friends. If I was starting over, I would try to target the reader communities a lot sooner. Probably people that are interested in sci-fi specifically, and fantasy, because those are the genres that I want to write, and that's what Eve Descending is. And like people who follow BookTok because they're looking for recommendations and things like that. Those are the people that are going to move copies for you. The author-to-author ecosystem on BookTok is great, and it's definitely worth being part of, but I think it should have played a lesser role in my marketing early on. So the book launched May 12th. Launch day is strange. You've been spending months or sometimes years like building towards this thing, and then the day arrives and like it's just a day. Nothing really changes. You post about it, you hit the publish button, and then you wait. And hopefully sales start coming in, but it's kind of weirdly quiet. What made it a lot more real for me was actually the book signing event that I had this last weekend. I went into a local bookstore. They had me set up at a table. I brought in my own book copies to sell and cookies and stuff for people to have. And my family was there. My parents came and supported me and my wife. And we just hung out for a few hours. And I'm genuinely grateful for every single person that came to help. And to the bookstore for allowing me to set this thing up with them. And it was crazy because people that had no idea who I was happened to be in there, saw my setup, were curious and came over and bought a book and got it signed right there on the spot. That was kind of surreal for me. It felt different. That felt real in a way that like sales numbers on a screen just doesn't really capture. And then that same day I found out that somebody in Canada had bought my book through Amazon and had left a review even, and they loved it. They gave me a 5-star review. So suddenly Eve Descending was international. I don't know this person. They don't know me. They found my book somehow, whether it was through some combination of the algorithm or their curiosity. They managed to find my book, bought it, liked it, and were compelled enough to write about it in a review. And that right there, that's the point of going wide with it. That's what distribution actually means in practice. The book finds people that I didn't have to reach to directly. So total sales right now, I've sold 54 copies total. That was 20 pre-orders, 10 print copies from Amazon, 10 audiobooks on Audible, 3 audiobooks on Spotify, 1 audiobook that I actually made custom for somebody. I put it on a CD for them, 4 individual physical copies that I've sold just randomly to people over the last 2 weeks, and then 6 on signing day. And that's across all platforms and retailers 2 weeks into this. So I want to be clear about what that is and what that isn't. The book is not a bestseller. I didn't expect it to be. It's my first book. It's a debut novel. Is it enough to quit your day job? No, probably not. What it really is it's a proof of concept. It's proof that people who don't even know me will find this book, buy it, and respond to it. And honestly, that's the foundation that everything else gets built on. So what's next? Well, this is a trilogy. I'm already writing book 2. I'm a little over 12,000 words into book 2 in about 5 chapters. My goal is to get it finished by the end of this summer, 2026, and then move on to editing and hopefully have a book 2 ready to release either by the end of this year or early next year. And my plan for the next 90 days is simple. I just need to keep building my audience. Keep making content, keep getting Eve Descending in front of people. The more people who know about it, the more people are likely to buy it. And then write book 2 at the same time. That's pretty much the whole job right now, besides my regular full-time job and all the rest of my life and raising a toddler. So here's what I want to leave you with. 1 book is a debut. 3 books is a catalog. A catalog is a career. I'm 1 book in, but I know exactly what I'm building toward. And the way that you get there is by doing the next thing and the next thing and the next thing and not mistaking the first result as your final verdict. Has my first book done okay? Yes. I would say that considering that a vast majority of independent authors never see any sales, I would say that this has been a success. 54 copies in 2 weeks, 1 reviewer from Canada, and a book signing event where random people came up to me and bought my book. That's not nothing. That's something. That's a good start. And hopefully I can keep the ball rolling as I continue pushing this thing forward. Independent publishing is slower and more difficult than anybody's going to tell you. The learning curve is real. The distribution decisions, the coming up with the graphic design stuff. Luckily, I had a background in some of this stuff, so I was able to do 90% of this myself, but it was a lot of work. I don't even know, if I had to take a guess, I probably put 1,000 hours into just this book. And that's probably under guessing, I think. The marketing grind, the emotional weight of finally putting something out there into the world for people to critique that you've been working on for a long time, sometimes years, sometimes decades. It's terrifying, it's exhilarating, and then waiting to see if anyone even cares. That kind of thing is not for the faint of heart. I don't recommend this to everyone. But here's the thing, it's completely doable. If you've got the ambition and the drive to make it happen, you can make it happen. If you got a manuscript that you've been sitting on for a long time and you're just thinking, man, is this really worth it? Here I am, a couple weeks in, 50 copies sold, feeling a little tired, but I'm also genuinely encouraged by how this has gone. And I'm telling you, it is.